Hello, this is DC Hammer, and this is the DC Hammer Show. So if you were to come across a headline such as this in a newspaper, and you were to read it, Birmingham school stops LGBT lessons after parents protest, you might think that's Birmingham, Alabama, would you not? Well, actually, this article comes to us from The Guardian in the UK, and that's Birmingham as in Birmingham, England. So let's peel back the layers of this onion. There's a lot of irony and interesting overlap of cultures and clash of cultures all at once. So here you see a teacher with his pupils, and in Birmingham, in his class apparently, all of his pupils are Muslims. So this is Parkfield Community School. And the white teacher is teaching. And you can see on the poster board behind the teacher, he is a equality teacher apparently. And you can see the symbols for coexist in one part of it, and then the blending of all of the different areas of the world, whether it be Africa or Asia or the Middle East, different religions and so on. And so obviously he is teaching unity. And let's tuck that idea away, but continue on through the article, because it'll take several paragraphs to get down to the point where it'll put into context exactly what kind of teaching is going on, who is doing the teaching, and why the teaching is taking place. So Parkfield Community School is a primary school, and these youngsters are being taught the joys of homosexuality and the challenge of homophobia. Well, that was taking place until hundreds of parents apparently did not appreciate the kind of teaching and believe that it's actually promoting gay and transgender lifestyles. Once again, let's tuck that thought away for a second until we get full illumination onto, once again, who's doing the teaching and the kind of teaching they're providing and why. So the school said that up to the end of this semester, term in their case, that's what they call it in the UK, we will not be delivering any no outsiders lessons. So this is a lesson that this particular teacher, has chosen to share with his students that's about everybody being included, which is, a good thought, but it also then depends upon, are they to be included as equals, or are some to be more equal than others? So last Friday, 600 of the Muslim children between 4 years old and 11 were, quote-unquote, withdrawn from the school for the day. That's, in other words, the parents kept them home and wouldn't allow them to come to school because they were clearly protesting the teaching that was taking place in the school. So the school made clear that they're not intending to continue with this curriculum that this particular teacher is providing after the end of this current term. And it's interesting that the assistant head teacher of this school was forced to defend these lessons after 400 predominantly Muslim parents signed a petition for them to be dropped entirely from the curriculum. So this teacher, Andrew Moffat, has been awarded an MBE for his quality work in equality education, but he believes he's been threatened and targeted via this leaflet campaign after the school piloted the No Outsiders program, supposedly just to promote equality for LGBT and challenge homophobia in primary schools. And the punchline is coming up. We're getting close. So Moffat, he's the author of Challenging Homophobia in Primary Schools. And he's on the short list for the world's best teacher. But he had to resign from another primary school, the Chilwell Croft Academy, also in Birmingham. There was another dispute that took place between him and both the Christian and Muslim parents. So how could this all be happening? What would be the catalyst bringing these forces in collision? A highly recognized teacher on one hand, and apparently a coalition of, and it's interesting, the coexist symbol on the blackboard behind teacher Moffat is interesting when you've got the Muslim and Christian parents coming together in their resistance to the teaching provided by teacher Moffat. So let's continue to drill down. So it appears this teacher, Mr. Moffat, is all about promoting homosexuality in the LGBT movement, but the resistance is coming from the parents say no to promoting homosexuality and LGBT ways of life to our children, and believe that they are being exploited, these innocent children, and that it's indoctrination, not education. So let's continue to read through this article to see what you believe is actually going on here. Is this truthful education by an educator completely consumed by the need to provide knowledge to students, enabling them to make their own decisions? Or is this one more case of a hardcore activist doing anything he can in order to indoctrinate children to his point of view? So there's a lot of this same-sex relationship and marriage kind of teaching going on, but at the same time, there's a whole lot of resistance coming from both the Muslim and Christian communities. And I guess the pressure on the educational institution became too great because they decided for, I don't know, how many times can you count this? If you counted it on one hand, I think you'd be left with 4 fingers after this episode. How many times have you heard of an educational institution preaching leftist or non-conforming or non-traditional views when challenged by groups of students and parents actually reverses course on what it is doing? So the school has agreed to have discussions as a first step with the parents in order to understand their point of view before deciding upon what's going to happen in that next semester. A Muslim parent, Fatima Shah, was the first one to raise the issue as she pulled her 10-year-old daughter out of the school, and saying that kids at this age are too young to be learning about same-sex marriage and LGBT rights in the classroom. At the same time, she said she's not a homophobe and the other mothers aren't. It's just inappropriate for this kind of teaching to be provided to these students at this point in their lives, in their educational studies, as the issues are complex and just may cause confusion amongst the youngsters. Can you say gender confusion? And interestingly enough, the member of parliament for this area, the Birmingham Ladywood area, Shabana Mahood, also a Muslim, is speaking out for the parents in her constituency and complaining about these primary schools that are teaching children about same-sex relationships. Again, the fact that it's Birmingham, England, instead of Birmingham, Alabama, it just strikes a very humorous note with me, but let's continue on. We're getting really close to understanding about what's exactly going on here. They have been engaging in debates, allowing both sides to be heard, and they are still considering what to do next time around. And naturally, if you're in the UK and you understand how Islam has pretty much taken over the entire country, the Chief Inspector of Ofsted, Armanda Spielman, reported to the school saying that it was vital for children to know about families that have 2 mummies and 2 daddies. But let's now drill down and figure out exactly why this particular teacher has taken this on as a crusade, and now after resigning from a prior school is now at his second school on this crusade, and why would this particular teacher be involved in this crusade? And voila, here's the answer. Buried in this article in one simple paragraph, you get a little of the background of assistant head teacher Andrew Moffat. However, after the inclusion of the program in the curriculum, Moffat, wait for it, I'm sure you haven't figured it out yet, who is in a civil partnership, Moffat, who is in a civil partnership, do you understand what's being said here? Mr. Moffat's a homosexual. He is living with another man and calling it a marriage, and he is not just doing this innocently, my opinion, to provide an educational opportunity for these youngsters. My belief is you've got a man who's on a crusade. It would almost be like a religious crusade, but in his case it is a crusade to ensure that his particular lifestyle choices are shared with students, as many as he can get his hands on, in order to try to persuade them that his lifestyle choice should be considered as maybe their lifestyle choice in the future. Is that potentially possible? And interesting, the end of this article indicates that the school's minister, Nick Gibbs, said that it's important for schools to take the religious beliefs of their pupils into account when they decide to deliver certain content to ensure topics are properly handled. Now, think about that. In the United Kingdom, there is no free speech. People like Tommy Robinson, whenever he gets up on a stage and he legitimately points out what is happening in dozens and dozens of communities in the United Kingdom with Muslim grooming gangs, with the Pakistani men preying upon young white girls, grooming them into situations in which they become prostitutes, they are raped, they are tortured, they are murdered. And that is done with the full cooperation under the watchful eye of the UK government. And instead of these gangs being stopped, it is Tommy Robinson and him bringing these issues to the public's attention that they have gone out of their way, the authorities in the United Kingdom have gone out of their way to have him silenced, even to the point of putting him in situations by falsely arresting him and putting him in prison with Muslims who have already vowed that they will murder him. That kind of silence. But at the same time, they now speak out, they being the authorities in the United Kingdom, about how maybe they should take into account religious beliefs of their pupils when they never would have made that statement when it was only at a Christian school or Christian parents were involved here. It only seems to come up when there's Muslim kids and Muslim parents. Then all of a sudden they have to take into account their religious beliefs. Again, as you go through this article from The Guardian, every paragraph has layers of meaning. You could do a program on each one of these paragraphs, the issues it raises, for the irony that's involved here, and what the dangers to our societies, regardless which path you're on. If you're on the path to promote gay rights, or if you're on the path to promote Islam, it's interesting how that can be woven into cultural narratives. But if you merely believe that your son and daughter should be raised based on traditional Christian beliefs, and there is only one mommy and one daddy in a relationship, and if it's not composed of a mommy and a daddy, a male and a female, it is not a marriage, it is something else. And if that's what you believe, then you are homophobic and you are the problem. But on the other hand, if you're a homosexual, you can believe in teaching to children that aren't ready to understand the teaching delivered, a variety of topics on complex issues such as the LBGT agenda, and everything's fine. And at the same time, if your kids are Muslim, your parent are Muslim, and they go to a school in the UK, they are going to be protected because they will be listened to when they file petitions. If they disagree with some teaching that's taking place, the school system will actually respond to the parents' complaints. But again, if you're white, if you're a Christian, if you're in the UK, you can't speak, you will be put in prison, especially when you just bring up the facts of what's going on with grooming gangs, Muslim grooming gangs throughout the UK. And a lot of this same kind of quote-unquote teaching is now being incorporated in the schools in the United States. And these are issues that I would say are coming detractions. I believe we should all look deeper into these issues, make our own conclusions about what's right and wrong, and maybe use this stance that the Muslim parents have used in the UK, the letter writing and keeping their kids out of class when they are put into environments in which they disagree with the teaching and the teacher. And maybe we should use that as the model for what to do here in the United States. Thank you for listening. God bless. And now the DC Hammer Show is available as an audio podcast. Just go to Podcast Garden or iTunes and search for DC Hammer or News Narrative Analysis Associates, NNAA.